Don't dismiss the Xiaopeng G6 as just another Chinese EV. This electric mid-size crossover is one of the most sophisticated and best value options in the Tesla Model Y segment, and an outstanding first effort in a class where some rivals are struggling to hit the sweet spot. In short, it's certainly worth a look.
It isn't only the styling which has a Tesla look, so do the powertrains. Things kick off with a standard range rear-driven model that uses a 66 kilowatt-hour LFP battery, which energizes a 262 bhp motor with 440 newton meters of torque, and that's able to propel the car to 62 in 6.9 seconds. EV range with the standard model is 270 miles. Most are expected to want the mid-level rear-driven long-range variant that we're trying here, which gives you a larger NCM battery with 87.5 kilowatt hours, and that boosts range to 354 miles. To compensate for the extra weight, there's a rear axle motor output boosted to 290 bhp, so the 0 to 62 miles an hour sprint time of 6.7 seconds is hardly any different. At the top of the lineup is, as you'd expect, an all-wheel drive dual motor model badged all-wheel drive performance. Here, the bigger 87.5 kilowatt-hour battery powers a motor on both axles, which together generate 483 bhp with 680 newton meters of torque. That's enough to take this G6 to 62 very rapidly indeed, 4.1 seconds on the way to the 124 miles an hour top speed that all versions of this car share. EV range there is 340 miles. All G6s offer a choice of 4 driving modes. There's Eco, Standard, Sport and Individual. Eco is pretty sufficient for 90% of normal driving, and particularly given the trouble that we've had in getting anywhere near to the claimed EV range stats here, that is the setting that we would certainly advise you to default to whenever you can. Unlike with the rival Tesla Model Y, you get to select varying levels of brake regeneration, although unfortunately, as with the drive mode settings, you have to fiddle around in touchscreen menus to find those. There are 4 regeneration options: low, medium, high and X pedal, and the latter slows the car really quite dramatically when you come off throttle. The brake regeneration is quite well integrated into the friction braking system, but there are 3 brake pedal feel settings to fiddle with if you don't like that. Xiaopeng also provides a choice of 3 drive sounds. Traditional engine doesn't sound anything like a traditional engine, but it is certainly better than the otherworldly feel that you get with the other 2 options. There's space floating and time warp. And you can choose also between 3 power steering settings. The sport option is quite direct, but none of them are particularly feelsome. There is quite a firm ride despite the advanced 5-link rear suspension and the supposedly sophisticated multi-valve Sachs passive dampers. Adaptive damping isn't offered here. Despite that, and perhaps predictably, the driving dynamics aren't especially involving, although to be fair, the G6 is reasonably agile through the bends for a 2.1 ton EV crossover. That's helped by the stiff SEPA 2.0 platform. Obviously, it's much more in its element to cruise, where you appreciate the vast number of Xiaopilot 2.5 camera drive assist features and the fact that all the binging and bonging that comes with those isn't too intrusive. You'll also appreciate this car's excellent refinement, helped no doubt by the double glazed glass here. You probably won't choose a G6 just because of the way it looks, but there's nothing to repel you here either. The shape is slightly more coupe-SUV than most of its rivals, and it broadly replicates the mid-sized crossover dimensions of the Tesla Model Y, whose sales, of course, it wants to replicate. But the technology shrouded by the aluminium panels here is indeed impressive. An 800-volt electrical architecture with a silicon carbide power inverter and a full scenario Xiaopilot network of 29 cameras, radar transceivers and ultrasonic sensors, with collective output overseen by a special NVIDIA processor. Since when did family cars get this complicated? At 4.75 meters long, 1.92 meters wide, and 1.65 meters tall, this car fits squarely into the mid-sized EV crossover segment. Now, Xiaopeng says the styling was influenced by the world of sci-fi fantasy, but to us, the influences seem to be far more those of segment rivals, particularly Tesla. Still, it's interesting that there are almost no bodywork creases, and it's certainly true that a lot of thought's gone in here. There are hidden door handles, there's a flat underbody, and a streamlined raked back tail. All of this combines to make the G6 one of the most aerodynamic cars in its class, with a drag coefficient of just 0.248 CD. So let's take a look inside. Well, once you close the frameless door, it's the usual Chinese mid-sized SUV formula, which sees almost everything controlled by a huge central touchscreen. At least though, unlike Tesla, Xiaopeng doesn't make you view the driving instruments on this. These are accommodated in the letterbox-shaped 10.2-inch instrument display you view through this rather weird oval-shaped steering wheel. Thankfully, unlike its American rival, Xiaopeng also thinks you need stalks for things like gear selection and the activation of wipers and indicators. Not so good is the fact that the said stalks are ancient, plastically old model Mercedes cast-off items, which feel rather out of kilter with the cabin tech fest. We could do without the rather chintzy sound effects you get on entry too. You sit quite high, but rather hemmed in, bathtub style, between the high centre console and the even higher window line. But the seats are powered, heated, they're ventilated and decently comfortable on longer trips, with four-way powered lumbar support, although they don't hold you in position particularly well at speed through corners. Light grey, or as in this case, dark cabin finishes are available, dominated by leatherette finishing, which doesn't feel particularly leather-like. Overall, you wouldn't call this interior, well, particularly premium or luxurious, but that never held Tesla back, and it's certainly true that all the fixtures and the fittings seem to be of decent quality. Door opening is controlled by a button down here rather than by a handle. Okay, let's take a look in the back. You'd hope a bespoke platformed EV with a generous 2.89 meters of wheelbase length would be spacious back here. So let's take a look. Sure enough, it feels very roomy indeed. The airy feeling here is helped by this vast standard fit panoramic glass roof. Thanks to 820 millimeters of leg space, two 6-footers can be seated behind a couple of really lanky front seat occupants, and the rear seats can be adjusted in 12 positions with a maximum angle of 38.4 degrees. Despite the glassy, swept back roofline, there's plenty of headspace too, up to 970 mils of it. And because there's no central tunnel, it'll be straightforward to accommodate a middle-seated adult if you needed to do that. Let's finish with a look out back. Now, there's standard powered tailgate, which can be operated not only from the key, but also up and down from the central screen, rises to reveal practical space, which, although it's decently sized at 571 litres, virtually the same as a rival Ford Capri, is quite a lot smaller than the trunk of a Tesla Model Y. That's a competitor with the added advantage, also lacking here, of extra underbonnet front space. Xiaopeng provides this thick boot floor mat, and there's space beneath the floor for some of the charging leads. There's also a light both sides and a 12-volt socket on the right. With everything flat though, up to 1,374 litres of space is freed up. What about battery replenishment? The 800-volt charging setup means that the car can use the latest ultra-rapid chargers, which are springing up all around Europe, and even more importantly, it means that the G6 can DC charge at up to 280 kilowatts, and that makes it one of the fastest charging EVs in the class. To be specific, this Xiaopeng can DC charge from 10 to 80% in under 20 minutes. All that's great, but an ex-Tesla owner might miss the lack of access to the American brand's really wonderful supercharger network. With a standard range version, a full 7.4 kilowatt wall box charge needs 10 hours 30 minutes. It'd be 7 hours 30 minutes if you can use the three-phase 11 kilowatt supply. With this long range model, a full 7.4 kilowatt wall box charge, that would need 14 hours or 9 hours 30 minutes if you can use one of those three-phase 11 kilowatt supplies. Xiaopeng wants to be what it calls the best smart pure electric brand. Whatever that might mean, there's real substance here, as you'd expect from a car made by a company with a research and development department accounting for over 40% of its 15,000 strong workforce. If you've ever wondered why cars in the Tesla Model Y segment can't charge faster, be better equipped, or be more affordable, then the Xpeng G6 might be for you. Unlike that Tesla, it won't frustrate you with the lack of conventional drive controls or an instrument cluster. There's no mandatory heavy regen braking, and there are no expensive options to add either. True, you might want more involving drive dynamics, easier to use screen functions, or less derivative styling, but if you can live with all those things, there's really a great deal to like here. Some Chinese car makers are really going to stand the test of time in our market, and if it keeps producing cars like this G6, Xiaopeng will be one of them.